listening to the Chase Merrill podcast.
I was scrolling on your Instagram and I saw you have a heavenly heat sauna.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm obsessed.
You're obsessed? Okay.
Yeah.
I have one ordered and it was supposed to be here in June, but they got pushed back to July and I cannot wait for it.
You're going to love it. It's like the nightly ritual. It's the best.
What do you like about the infrared versus like a traditional, if you have the infrared?
Yeah, so I have the infrared. Either one can get your body to the core temperatures that you need to see the clinical results like dementia reduction, mortality risk reduction, cardiovascular health. The difference between an infrared and a traditional is that infrared is going to heat your skin more, whereas traditional is heating the ambient air. And that's what most of the studies have been done on. But if you want more sweat, like for detoxification purposes, then an infrared is the way to go.
Really? How long have you had yours?
Let's see, 2 months, so it's new.
Yeah. What's your daily, weekly protocol for it?
So 4 to 5 times a week, depending, and typically at night, like basically Monday through Friday at night before bed. It's so nice to relax, unwind, and it just makes me really sleepy after. So it's just great.
You are a neuroscience PhD and you speak and are an expert in longevity. How does the sauna amplify longevity in any way?
Yeah, so it definitely does. And there's a couple mechanisms, but it first came up that it even helps with longevity from those Finnish studies that showed there was a 40 to 50% reduction in overall mortality, which is, I mean, that's insane. Like, there's not a pill that does that, right? So that's some pretty incredible results. And there's really sort of two pathways. The first is activation of these heat shock proteins. So heat shock proteins are chaperone proteins and they help other protein folding. They also can sort of activate this anti-inflammatory pathway, NRF2, but also reducing NF-kappa beta, which drives inflammatory cytokines. So you're reducing inflammation as well as you have this improved vascular function. So when you're sweating like that, your blood is pumping and that ends up improving your vascular health, your cardiovascular health. It's one of those hormesis levers where you're stressing your body a little bit so that you can actually improve resilience over time. And that's where those longevity benefits come from.
The Finnish studies, aren't those done on more traditional saunas versus infrared?
That's why the hardcore people say, traditional saunas only. But this idea that you can't get your body to a core temperature that they did in those studies is wrong. So basically what they're arguing is like, well, there could be other factors within a traditional that we're not accounting for that could cause the effects that we're seeing. But if we look at biological markers that are indicated, like lower CRP levels or improved, vascular flow, all of those also change with infrared sauna. So it's kind of just like, are you a purist or are you going to sort of believe in the fundamental biology and recognize that things can transfer even without a specific study for it?
And it's crazy how much the people who are like really into saunas are so hardcore into either camp. You have like very little crossover where people are just like, oh, it's all right. Most people are like die one way or the other.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't understand that. It's like, just get people to start saunaing. Like, I feel like that's more important than arguing over what sauna to do.
I love the sauna. When I get in the sauna, you just feel better after. You feel like you've done something. You feel like more recovered. You feel tired, true. Like especially if it's like really hot. So I like to do mine later in the day in the evening because I do sleep so much better. But I love the sauna and I cannot wait for mine to get here. Fingers crossed they don't push it back again because I'm going to be living in that. How did you get interested into the field of like longevity? How did you even get into like what pushed you to getting your PhD in neuroscience?
Yeah, I was all over the map before deciding to go into neuroscience. I ended up just working in a lab and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And then from working in that lab in undergrad, they suggested I get a PhD. I went and got a PhD. And after my PhD is when I started really getting into longevity. It started like coming up more in sort of, I guess, like pop science culture. Like I found
Mhm.
Dr. Rhonda Patrick and I was like,
Yeah,
she's so cool. And I became like
she is.
obsessed. And then I was like, well, I work in a lab, like why am I studying? I used to study addiction, which is also interesting. But I was like, let's study, what we're researching on the weekends. So that's when I started getting into like brain aging and stuff like that in my postdoc and beyond.
Just give me one quick moment, then we'll be right back to the episode. If you are enjoying the show, go ahead and give me a follow or subscribe wherever you are listening. It helps way more than you'd think. And if you wouldn't mind leaving a rating or a review, that helps new people find the show as well. And if you have any questions or comments or recommendations for guests, go ahead and reach out to me at Chase C. Merrill on Instagram or leave a comment right here on Spotify. Thank you so much for being here. Now let's get back to the episode. Dr. Rhonda Patrick is awesome. I remember listening to her years ago. She's actually one of the people that got me hooked on the sauna first. And then
Yeah, she was the original like proponent of it. Yeah.
oh yeah. And she talks about that. She talks about like omega-3s as well as a decrease in all-cause mortality, which is really cool. She's awesome. And I really like how she seems to be able to change her opinion as well based on the science, which you don't often see. You see people who are a little bit more dogmatic about like what they say, and I always have to say it. But she's changed her opinion on several things over the course of like the 5 years that I've been listening to her, which I think is really cool. I think it lends some validity to her as well.
Yeah, I never understood that because most of those people, I would argue, probably weren't scientists because to actually be in science and be in the lab, you change your opinion all the time because the data changes. So
Mhm.
to not be able to change your opinion to me is like, okay, you're not a real scientist because you literally have to if you actually want to like find the truth, explore what's real.
Why do you think, because I agree with you completely, longevity, the broad word of
Yeah.
longevity, has been really in the pop culture in the zeitgeist lately. Everybody's talking about it. Why do you think that is? And do you think it's bad or they're talking about it in the right way? What do you think's going on with that?
Yeah, so one, I think it's actually been building. Like if we look back 10 years ago, so there weren't, like Rhonda Patrick really did start it all. She was before Peter Attia, she was before Huberman. But this shift in communicating science in a more detailed way that's not like, oh, this helps your brain, like actually diving
Mhm.
into the mechanism and recognizing that people actually appreciate that and want to learn more about that was sort of a green light to flood more like social media and other platforms to provide like detailed explanations of how science can improve your health and using actual research to guide your daily protocols. You know, that has been building over the past 10 years. And I think longevity flows into that, where longevity is now kind of synonymous with like just health and wellness.
Mhm.
Like a lot of the things that most people talk about in terms of longevity are not actually specifically like geroprotection. Geroprotection is something that sort of doesn't attack a specific phenotype like, cardiovascular health or skin aging or something. It targets like a pathway that underlies all of these things that change as we age. But that's typically not how people talk about longevity. I used to not understand why people got so upset when people were using the word longevity in a health and wellness space when it wasn't necessarily applicable because it's like, okay, they're telling people to be healthier. Like,
Mhm.
is this really the devil? Like, come on, like that's not a big deal. Like, it's good that this is like popular. But then I went to this panel. It was this like longevity exercise panel, and it was literally the worst advice in the world. And people were just looking at them like they were experts because they had the word longevity. And I was like, this
Mhm.
is horrendous advice. They told people not to do cardiovascular exercise, like don't do aerobic, just do strength. And I was like, VO2 max is like the greatest predictor of your
Yeah.
longevity. So I don't know what the hell is going on here. Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine that's really frustrating because I mean, I don't have a PhD. I just and listen and consume and try to sift the facts the best way that I can. But I get on social media all the time and I'm just, scrolling through it and something will pop up. They'll have thousands of likes, hundreds of thousands of followers. And I'll be like, well, that's not true what you're saying. Like, that's not true at all. And then you just have people who just consume that and take that as fact and apply that. And so I can imagine it's super frustrating for people in your position who are actually educated on the topic and they see other people with large followings who are spewing false information.
Yeah, it is frustrating and it's also sad because if I was just a normal consumer going through all this information, it's too much. Like there's too many
Mm-hmm.
conflicting opinions, and especially with, I mean, there's conflicting opinions in people that know what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So to also have this layer of people that are using really old information or information that is not valid adds another layer of film to this murky water that we already
Mm-hmm.
exist in. So yeah, I find it really frustrating, but I feel more sad about how this is going to affect like the average consumer in terms of changing their life for the better. Because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that stuff is like take this one supplement and you're going to be cured
Yep.
forever. When it's like obviously that's not true. If it was, it would cost thousands of dollars and people would be in line. But yeah, it's a holistic approach, and I just hope I don't know that gets through to most people.
It is really confusing. I had Dr. Anthony Chafee on the podcast a couple episodes. Super, hardcore carnivore, like talks all about only eating meat, hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram, MD, and he talks about the benefits of just eating meat and only that. And then you have other people who talk about being vegan or eating vegetarian. And then you have people like Dr. Rhonda Patrick, who's I've listened to her and talk about her being like keto at a time and not eating vegetables. And then now she talks about like eating vegetables. So it's super difficult to even navigate something that you would think would be relatively agreeable, like what we
Yeah.
should be consuming.
I think what's annoying about the nutrition space is people are arguing over like cents versus the dollars, where it's like have people eat whole foods, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Whether that includes vegetables or you're just eating meat, you want to eat single ingredient foods. And arguing about these little details is not helpful. Getting people away from like packaged foods,
Yeah.
sugar, all these things is the key. It's not arguing over keto versus carnivore. Although I will say I don't keto is overhyped. I tried
Mm-hmm.
keto. I like lost my period. It was really unhealthy for me. Also, it was terrible for my cholesterol. So you also just need to like monitor yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What I am happy about in this space is there's a huge push for like self monitoring, whether that's like
Mm-hmm.
wearables or like function health is blowing up. Just constantly testing yourself and seeing what works for you, because that's really where changes are going to be made when you realize this diet works for me, this diet doesn't work for me, because it's also about psychology. Like, what can you stick to?
Mm-hmm. So, in your opinion, just to speak to diet and longevity again, to use the word, um how what is your approach to nutrition that people should do if they want to be conscious and try to be as healthy as far into the future and as far into old age as they can?
Yeah, so I think one, you definitely want to get enough protein intake, especially as women, we tend to eat less protein.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to get satiated faster. So when you get satiated faster, you tend to eat less protein because it's very satiating. Um, so I think the 30 grams within 30 minutes of waking is a good rule. I personally cannot eat within 30 minutes, so I'll
Mm-hmm.
that my first meal will have 30 grams of protein, but I just don't wake up hungry. And then my goal really is to eat as many different kinds of fruits and vegetables throughout the week. So I want my grocery cart to have as many vegetables and as many different fruits as possible. Just having a variety of colors, textures on your plate is, I think, key to getting a wide variety of phytonutrients. And with food, it's in a food matrix. So if you are not taking a multivitamin and multimineral, you will really want to have that variety because you're going to be able to pull in the nutrients more because it's in that food matrix that is your food.
When you say enough protein, like 1 gram per pound, what are we talking?
Yeah, so I think what's the RDA? 0.6
Hmm.
per kilogram. And I think so the RDA was created based on like it was based on like urine analysis. So like
Hmm.
how much protein is actually being like secreted. Like, are you losing protein from that? So you probably don't, you want to go above the RDA. So I do like 1.2 per kilogram. I think that's a good rule.
Okay. Yeah. I printed out a sheet with like daily things that my wife and I need to do that we can, and then it's got like the week, and you can just put a box in there. And I made this 100% for my wife because she forgets every single day, but it's just like creatine or like whatever fish oils, whatever so she can just like check it off and say like, oh, I took this. And one of the boxes on there is like 50 grams of protein plus for breakfast because
Oh my
because
God.
I try to get her to front load her
Yeah.
morning because I know she's actually in medical school right now. She's doing her
Oh,
MD PhD, and I
congrats.
know
That's a
yeah,
toughie.
yeah, she's year one, about to finish up year one, so we got a while to go. But I know if she doesn't front load that day with that protein, it's not going to happen. She's not going to make it up, or she's going to be so busy studying and not want to stop. And so I think that's huge. Like, yes, protein is awesome. And particularly for females or people who aren't conscious of training and gaining that muscle, is like trying to front load that protein because A, it's satiating, and B, you'll just check that box a little bit earlier on.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that too, like on a whole spectrum, like the thing that's hardest for you to do in terms of your habits or work or whatever, putting that at the front of the day is the best in terms of like making sure you do it every day.
Mhm. So protein, prioritize a diverse selection of fruits and vegetables. I'm very, very good at my fruits. I need to get better at my vegetables. I'm starting to introduce those back in. I was doing carnivore for a while. Then I started training for my Ironman that I'm doing. So I was like, okay, I got to get some carbs in. And so I've started implementing like white rice and fruits. And then now, and I feel great. I feel no different compared to when I was doing carnivore or not. Like I feel fine. Everything's the same. Don't feel foggy or anything like that, like brain fog. And so now I'm introducing vegetables back in as well. And again, I feel fine. So whatever works for people in that aspect. So I'm introducing those. But you mentioned multivitamin. Do you recommend people take a multivitamin?
Yeah, I mean, some people call it expensive urine, but ultimately to me, you're just covering your bases. So if you have that in your habit, then no matter what you ate that day, your phytonutrients will be generally covered in terms of like the main minerals and vitamins that you need. It's, I just think it's a good base to have. It's not going to hurt you. Maybe it's not going to help you as much, but on certain days, it probably will help you.
Is there one that you like or recommend?
I actually made my own.
Oh, cool.
It's in my like female longevity
Yeah.
supplement. Um, yeah, so I just take that because it also has collagen and spermidine, and
Mm.
so I like to minimize effort and just have everything in one
Yeah.
supplement.
Is there other supplements that you think people should take if they want to focus on longevity?
Ooh, yeah. I mean, so fish oil, 1 to 3 grams
Mhm.
of EPA per day. I also am very bullish on turmeric.
Mm.
Or curcumin. So this has been shown on multiple fronts to reduce inflammation by reducing NF-kappa beta from like driving inflammatory cytokines. And inflammation is the root cause of pretty much every aspect of aging. It's been shown to be causally linked to pretty much every aspect of aging. So that I think everyone should take as well. There's now sort of more like interest in calcium AKG as a geroprotective molecule. There's some exciting preclinical work. There was a new clinical study that showed that it reduced biological age and also reduced some other metrics outside of that, like heart health. I think they did like skin health and hair health. And then I love spermidine. It has a terrible name, but it promote. I know it's the worst. The worst thing is too is so part of a conglomerate of molecules called polyamines. That's a nice name, but every name under it, it's spermidine, spermine, and putrescine. It's just like why? Like who?
Very appetizing.
Yeah. But they promote autophagy. So which is a hallmark of aging. You lose autophagy,
Mhm,
which is the ability of your cells to sort of spring clean, clean up the gunk. And this is
mhm,
really, really important for brain health because your neurons don't divide anymore. So they need that spring cleaning. You're not getting a new cell, which would like sort of be more of a clean slate like you have with your liver or literally any other organ. So there's also been some studies with spermidine with like hippocampal white matter. It increases thickness in Alzheimer's patients. So I also love spermidines despite the name.
What about creatine and the recent studies coming out on like higher doses of creatine and for cognitive and brain function as well?
Yeah, so creatine in terms of brain health has been bubbling up over the past,
Mhm,
I'd say 5 years. There was the original studies were in TBI patients showing that people that were taking creatine and got TBIs, traumatic brain injuries, they had like better recovery and less of an inflammatory response if they were on creatine. Now there was this recent study that just came out that for Alzheimer's disease patients, they were taking 20 grams of creatine and they did it over 8 weeks and they had an improvement of symptoms across metrics, which is very, very rare for an Alzheimer's disease
mhm,
trial. Like we have to remember with neurodegeneration, neurons are dying. You know, the your astrocytes and glia cells within your brain, the inflammatory load is off the charts. It's a mess. So to get any improvement is incredible. Um, and I think it's sort of just the beginning of creatine in terms of brain health. But if we think about it from a fundamental biology, creatine helps your cells produce more energy. And
mhm,
the brain is an energy sucker. It takes 20% of the energy that you have in your body. So it requires a lot of energy. So if you have a loss in energy, your brain is going to suffer. So I think, yeah, I honestly started taking creatine for brain reasons, not necessarily for other
yeah.
reasons. And yeah, I highly recommend.
So you recommend it for everybody, regardless of because it is touted as the muscle gaining supplements got the most research, and it definitely does. By what you were saying, creating more ATP and more energy, letting you get a little bit more reps, and more reps, more mass over time. So do you recommend people, let's say women who aren't training or an older demographic? Do you recommend everybody take it? And if so, just the traditional 5 grams per day?
Yeah. So women on average produce 20% less creatine than men. So we should have more creatine than men, even though it's like sort of this like bulking supplement. I guess it's
Mhm,
how it was originally marketed. It's for everyone and it's definitely for women. The Alzheimer's dose in a lot of those clinical studies for like dementia and stuff, they were doing 10 or 20 grams of creatine, which is a lot.
mhm,
I take 10, uh, like, because to me, trying to get brain benefits for someone with Alzheimer's disease is a very different dose than someone who's trying to prevent or improve
mhm,
cognitive performance today with a healthy brain. So I think originally people were recommending doing high doses at the beginning, like 20 grams for 2 weeks, and then going down to like 2 to 5 grams.
mhm,
I think that was largely debunked. So I would
mhm.
recommend, 5 to 10 grams. But honestly, women should actually be taking a little bit more than men because of our endogenous or natural lack of production of creatine.
My wife, she's gonna listen, and I'm gonna say, start checking that creatine box. I, I weighed 196 this morning. I take about 5 grams of creatine first thing in the morning with my water. I drink about 20 ounces of water, but I'm also eating about 2 pounds of like lean skeletal meat a day, so I know I'm getting creatine from that as well.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely probably checking that box of around 10 to 15 grams total is what I'd probably think. You mentioned fish oil as well. It's super easy to get a rancid, nasty fish oil at Costco or pretty much anywhere. What should we be looking for to get a quality one? And does
Yeah.
quality matter?
Yeah. Quality definitely matters. So, oxidization of those molecules, meaning becoming rancid, is very easy because of the type of like fatty molecule that it is. Um, so, you want to get, third party tested, heavy metals tested. Um, and there's some that are sort of like cold pressed and
Mhm,
some that are I f- I don't think it's hot pressed. There's a different word for it. Um, Either are fine if they're high quality and they have those, if they're high quality, meaning they have those testing regimens of third party heavy metal. So you know what's in it, you know the exact content. But the ones that are regular, like not cold pressed, you have to eat with food.
Mm.
Um, Otherwise, you won't be able to absorb it. So most of them you have to eat with food. I take Viva Naturals. That one you need to eat with food. There's a few on the market you don't, but yeah, just assume to eat it with food.
I'm taking, I think it's Puri. Puri is the name. It's got the IFOS certification,
Oh,
all
nice.
third party. So it's definitely been good. I just take that again first thing in the morning, not on food. Maybe you should look at doing that. But I don't get any like rancid fish burps or anything like that. So there's nothing going on there. Um, Again, how would you rank fish oil or so if I were to say, hey, you can only take 3
Mm.
supplements for the rest of your life and multivitamin does not count, what would those 3 be?
Okay, so fish oil is definitely one.
Okay.
Um, I would say also probably okay, is magnesium in the multivitamin?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, then I would say curcumin. I really am
Okay.
bullish on that. And then I would say, ooh, okay, for girls, I would say collagen. It really
Mm,
has incredible benefits for your skin, for your hair. If you don't care about that, then I would say spermidine. I
okay.
very bullish. Yeah.
When speaking about collagen, what so collagen is just missing one of the essential amino acids, right? It's not a complete protein, right? So
It's yeah.
is there a difference in when should I take one versus the other and why?
Yeah, so collagen is very unique in terms of the amino acid structures that are predominant within a collagen peptide. So peptides are sort of broken up proteins, amino acids make up peptides. And the amino acids that are predominant in collagen are these things called proline and hydroxyproline.
Mm,
And these specific amino acids actually evade your gut, and they're actually able to make it to the bloodstream because of their shape. They have this pentameric ring, and it makes them harder to digest by your enzymes. It's just like happenstance. And
mm,
so that's how it's actually able to improve your skin as well as your joints. There's now multiple studies and meta studies showing that collagen can improve your joints because of these amino acids that evade your stomach. So they're actually able to get to the blood and then picked up by where the blood flows through. Um, there was a lot of, huff and puff that collagen, how can it get to your skin? Like it goes through your
mhm.
stomach, which is true for like 90% of things. If you eat liver, it's not going to improve your liver. It's going to be broken down by your stomach. And then, but collagen has this really unique aspect about the amino acids within it. So, in terms of comparing it to protein, I don't look at it as protein. I look at it
Okay.
as a supplement for my skin and for my joints.
So if you're counting towards your daily protein goal, will you, because on a lot of collagen supplements it'll be like 20 grams of protein. Are you counting that as 20 grams of protein towards your goal there or
Um, Not really, no.
not really?
Yeah, like if I didn't make it to my 100 grams or whatever a day,
Mm,
then I'll be like, well, I have my collagen supplement, but I don't really count it. That being
gotcha.
said, just because something's not a full protein doesn't mean it doesn't have, benefits in terms of
Mhm.
being a protein. But again, because of those amino acid structures within it, I don't look at it as an energy source for my muscles. I look at it as a
Okay.
supplement for my skin and my joints.
And your joints. Do you recommend it that in like a powdered supplement form or do you take like a bone broth? What's
Oh,
your preferred way?
I take it in a powdered supplement form. I like to
Mm,
know my milligrams. I like to know what amino acids are in the collagen supplement, but I also love bone broth, so I do both. If some
okay.
people are really averse to supplements, like they just don't want to take them, they think they're a hoax or that it's better from food. And in some cases it is, but and for those
Mhm.
people it's like, yeah, do bone broth. But I like to know my dosage.
For sure. You mentioned when I was asking you for a top 3, you asked about magnesium. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, love magnesium. I think Well, one, because of the way that our soil is treated, most of our fruits and vegetables are devoid of magnesium. So we're really just replenishing what should be in our vegetables from the start.
Mhm.
But it has so many people are anxious and can't sleep. And this is like magnesium glycinate has been incredible for my sleep and my anxiety levels. And
Mhm.
it's just such a game changer. As well as citrate is great for gastrointestinal flow. I'm not very bullish on L-threonate.
Mhm.
There's like 2 studies on it. And the idea that magnesium can't get past the blood and into the brain is wrong.
Okay.
So yeah, but yeah, magnesium overall. I honestly just take like a full compass one where it's like citrate and glycinate.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
I've been taking like 240 milligrams of uh, magnesium glycinate like an hour and a half before bed. It's been great. It's been awesome. I sleep better. It's trackable and noticeable on my. I have an 8 sleep that kind of tracks
Oh,
what
cool.
I sleep. So it's game changer, absolutely, for how I sleep. Um, Training wise, we were we kind of started at the beginning how people were getting terrible advice and how they should not train cardio. How what are you thinking, like cardio versus strength training, a mix of both? What should they prioritize?
Yeah, I mean, you need to prioritize both. Both are extremely important. But in terms of actual minutes throughout the week, you're going to spend more time in cardio because we really want to get 150 to 300 minutes of zone two. So
Okay.
that's a pretty bulk, like what that's 5 hours for 300 minutes. So that's a big bulk of time. Um, on top of that, you want to get like 30 to 60 minutes of zone four, zone five. I'll typically do two like Norwegian 4x4s, which is 4 minutes of running, 4 minutes of walking, repeat four
Mhm.
times. People hear these like high intensity training, like 4x4 hit or whatever, and think it's this, horrendous thing and you're going to have these cortisol spikes and it's going to be terrible for you. It's the easiest workout. It's over in like 30 minutes. You barely recognize that you were even there. You feel winded and good after, but it's so quick. It's actually the easiest workout.
Mhm.
And then what I'll do is I'll pair my strength training with the zone two. So I'll do zone two for 30 minutes, and then I'll do strength training for 30 to 45, depending on like my timing for the day. And then for me, also doing like mobility training, I do a lot of yoga. Having at least like one of those classes a week has been great for injury prevention, flexibility, and I just noticed my balance is so much better, which is important for longevity as well to have that.
Why, like, if people, like, you have people on the left, the far of either spectrum, whether that be like ultra distance runners or power lifters or whatever that looks like. So when you have like an ultra distance runner whose skin and lungs and just can go forever, and they say, no, I'm super healthy, they are, I'm sure, in terms of that aspect, but why are they not primed for longevity if they don't have any muscle or not enough?
Yeah, so when you get to the extreme on anything, it becomes unhealthy, whether that's you're
Mhm.
only lifting super heavy or you're only doing like extremely long distance cardio, it gets unhealthy. You need to have a mix of both. For the long distance runner, they're going to have, great amount of mitochondria in their muscles, and they're going to have probably great blood flow for their brain, but they're going to be at a high risk for sarcopenia and falling and breaking bones,
Mhm.
which if you're over 60, I think if you break a bone, like the likelihood that you're going to die within a year is like 30%, which is insane.
Really?
It's crazy. Especially if it's a hip, which is the most common one. So you really want to have muscle that's going to help support your skeletal structure. So having strength training alongside your cardio is key.
Yeah, I was listening to something like after the age of 60, like if you break a bone, like the quality of life, even if you don't, if you survive, is just like drastically downhill because your body just can't recover after that, and it just everything goes down
Yeah.
from that point. How does sleep factor into all of this?
Yeah, so sleep, I mean, is another huge pillar. I mean, it's like basically exercise, nutrition, sleep. These are the pillars. Sleep, if you have poor sleep consistently, you're like twice as likely to get dementia. Women that sleep less than 6 hours a night are 36% more likely to get Alzheimer's disease. And 6 hours a night, like a lot of people sleep that. So you
Mhm.
really want to try to get 8 to 9 hours. I really love a sleep tracker because it gamifies your sleep in a way that
Mhm.
makes you want to sleep more and optimize your routine because you get a good score and you feel good and it's nice. I'm not saying like every single aspect of those trackers are correct, but I think the gamification of something that's important for your health helps people sort of prioritize it. Um, but yeah, for sleep, I thrive on 9 hours. I typically only get 8, which I'm like, it's fine.
Mhm.
But I like if I was left to my own devices, I would sleep 9 hours. Uh, I used to have a huge problem falling asleep. I just couldn't. I would sit there for 45 minutes trying to fall asleep. But incorporating magnesium, L-theanine was key for me. 20 minutes before
Okay.
bed is like right when it kicks for me. And then it'll really just help me get into sleep, as well as apigenin has actually helped me lower my resting heart rate, which I love.
So that's your sleep cocktail, the apigenin, the L-theanine, and then the magnesium,
Yeah.
like 20 minutes before bed.
20 minutes before bed, 20 to 30.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll take it,
Okay.
hop into bed, like read my book, and then
Yeah.
lights out.
My wife and I, we're the same. Last night, I think we were literally in bed at like 7:50. It was because we were just like sitting around. It's like she was done studying. We don't watch TV. My phone was turned off. I was like, what am I gonna do? So we just get in bed and then like we just read until for a little bit, and then it's like lights out at like 8:30. But I get up at 5:30 so I can go work out because I love sleep. I prioritize sleep, and I'm the same. If I don't get good sleep, everything feels harder. Like the world feels darker, my day feels darker. I feel worse about myself. I feel worse about other people. Everything for me revolves around that night of sleep, and so I prioritize it super hardcore.
Yeah. Yeah. I learned this lesson very young, actually. And I think I'm also really sensitive to it. Like when I was in high school, my parents they were like, you can go to sleep at whatever time, but you're getting up at this time. And
Mm-hmm.
quickly learned, like, this is not worth it. Um,
Yeah,
and I'm so sensitive to a lack of sleep. I'm a completely different person. I'm like a shell of a human. And so I absolutely prioritize it. I also eat terribly if the next day, like I'm craving all these carbs. My
mm-hmm.
body isn't craving foods that are good for it, which normally it does. Yeah, sleep is it's mental and physical. It really is just so beneficial for your day to day and also your long term.
Absolutely. I always say I talk about my 8 sleep all the time to like everybody. Everybody will listen to it. I'm not sponsored. I don't have anything going on with them, but I always say like if that broke, I would buy a new one that day, like instantaneous. And it's expensive. They're like really expensive because it affects my sleep so much. Just the ability to control my temperature on each side throughout the night. Whenever I go anywhere else or stay in a hotel, it just doesn't compare. So for me, having an 8 sleep, I have a similar cocktail of magnesium. I have taken apigenin and L-theanine as well. And then blue light blocking glasses. I don't know, whatever you want to say about it. Maybe it does help, maybe it doesn't. But for me, I think it's just a routine. Because like once I have those on and I'm in bed, it's like my body starts to wind down, and then just getting up at the same time every day has been huge.
Oh my God, I didn't realize how big of a impact that has because I was going through a period of time where sometimes I would have to be up at a certain hour and other times I would have an extra hour and I'd be like, oh, I'll sleep an extra hour. Like this is more sleep. Great.
Mm-hmm.
But that actually impacted then the next night's sleep because I would be a little bit more awake and want to stay up later. Having that time frame that you wake up every single day at is so key in terms of just getting your body in a rhythm.
Absolutely. Saturday, Sunday, I'm up at 5:30 all the time just because I know that's just when I wake up. For speaking of sleep, the number one thing that people are doing probably to affect it is some degree of caffeine and caffeine addiction. How should they navigate that? And how do you feel about caffeine?
Big proponent, big user. I mean, yeah, I'm like insanely busy. So the idea of cutting out caffeine terrifies me. But I've found if I limit it to pre-noon, then I'm
Mm,
fine. I've also found I'll go through phases where I'll start having caffeine in the afternoons, and initially it'll like wreck my sleep, but then my body will get used to it. So if you have problems with sleep, just limit your caffeine to before noon. And if that doesn't work, do it before 10. And you can adjust depending on how your sleep is changed. That's why having a tracker is so amazing because you can actually have like numbers where you're like, okay, for these 2 weeks I did X and these are the results versus like, oh, I felt better. Having a number is so much nicer.
is there a tracker you like?
I use the Oura Ring. I've used the Oura Ring
Okay.
for years. Yeah.
Yeah. I just got my wife a Whoop on Tuesday. It was her birthday. I got her Whoop. I wish I could use the Aura Ring as well, but like the majority of my time, I'm like gripping a barbell, or I've done like Olympic weightlifting or like gymnastics, and I'm like, this. I don't want a ring on my finger that I can't take, that I have to take off during the time that I want it to track. And so a
Oh,
Whoop,
yeah,
because like I don't, if I'm wearing it during a workout, it'll get all messed up. So I wear the Whoop, or I have worn the Whoop. I got my wife the Whoop now for that very reason. Whether or not it's super accurate, the trends are, at least like I can see over time if things are going up and down.
for sure. I will say this with Aura though, like I wouldn't want to track my heart rate that much during strength, right?
Mm,
Like
mm-hmm.
for strength isn't cardio, even if your heart rate
For
goes up.
sure.
So, like, I wouldn't care about that. Like, what I would want to see is, okay, when I'm doing my, 4x4 training, what heart rate am I getting to in my 4 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
And if when I'm on my walks, am I in zone two? Um, those types of metrics I would care about more. So I would still recommend an ring because I do take mine off when I take all
Yeah,
my rings off when I'm like training.
for
Um,
sure.
yeah, because it
Yeah,
actually, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Um, it affected part of my like 4x4 training. Like there was a period of time where I wasn't getting into zone five in those 4 minutes. I needed to extend it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was actually getting like I started doing like 6x6 because I was actually getting into like zone five for at least half of it. Now I've sort of trained myself to like just hit the ground running and get into it
Yeah.
more. But it's also just nice to know, okay, I actually got, 30 total minutes of zone four, zone five this week. I don't know another way. Whoop probably has it, but without a
Mm-hmm.
tracker, like how are you actually getting that information?
For sure. I've got a Garmin, and then I've got a Garmin like chest strap.
Oh,
So whenever
nice.
I'm doing my Ironman training, I put that on, and then it pairs to my watch. Because like when I'm doing like a 2.5 hour bike ride, sometimes I'll drift too far up or too far down, and just being able to dial in that zone two for those longer sessions is super huge. And I found that my Garmin often read low, so like
Interesting.
just on my watch or on my wrist, like it would read low compared to when I put on my heart strap. So that was kind of nice as well. Gave me a little bit more accurate one to dial down.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's clear that something like an aura or something on your wrist is going to be less accurate than anything on your chest. The gold
Mm-hmm.
standard is on your chest. But I've always wondered, like, what's the inaccuracy? Like, is it just like standard deviation is like wider, or does
Mm-hmm.
it drift towards, being lower? It
Mm-hmm.
makes sense lower because it's farther from your heart. So yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was for me. It was like it often it was like 5 to 7 beats lower, which whatever you want to say about that, maybe it's not a huge deal, but when I'm 2 hours in, it feels like a huge deal
Yeah.
because I feel tired. Um, what is something that we didn't talk about during this podcast that you think is important that we should or should have?
Let's see. Um, well, we could talk about like meditation or other like cognitive
Mm,
stuff, like habits. Uh, yeah.
Yeah. Meditation, how does that play into longevity?
So there's a lot of sort of growing evidence in terms of meditation for not just mental health, but also physical health. And I think part of that process is when you're able to consistently meditate, you get a better grasp on recognizing your thought patterns, recognizing your mind going into a mental spiral. And so you're able to reduce cortisol response. And now there's more evidence showing that meditation can reduce inflammation. And I think this is from this sort of cortisol adrenaline response, where if you're able to reduce those negative thoughts or at least recognize them and then transition your thought pattern, you can lower that like cortisol negative emotional response, which is associated with higher levels of inflammation. Like depressed patients have higher levels of inflammation. And also, if you give people inflammation, they get depressed. So there is this connection between mental well being and body inflammation, which again, inflammation is like the root cause of the vast majority of aspects of aging that we see.
Do you what's I assume you meditate.
Yeah.
Is there a certain protocol that you follow or you recommend people do?
Yeah, so one, just do something that you like start with building the habit and then get into the nitty gritty. I do two types of meditation. One is just Vipassana style, where you're focusing on a breath or you can focus on a different sensation. There's a ton on YouTube. Like, YouTube is amazing. There's so many different
Mm,
types of meditations on there, and there's different voices because that can be very like sensitive. Like, you can be like, oh, I hate this voice. So there's
yeah.
a lot of options. um, and then another one that I really love and have seen the most benefits from emotionally is gratitude and emotional meditations, where you meditate on a feeling. And Joe Dispenza is like a big proponent of this. He talks about, he initiates meditating on a feeling by you're thinking about a future state where your dreams are all, come true, and like you're in that state and you feel those feelings. But once you sort of get past that, you actually can start to meditate on that feeling without imagining anything. And then you leave the meditation, you just like meditated on being grateful or happy for 30 minutes and you feel like amazing.
Okay, so when you say like meditate on that feeling, it's not a feeling that you currently have, it's a feeling that you're trying to have, like you want to have.
I mean, you can currently feel, I mean, emotions and moods waver day to day, minute to minute. So, like,
Hmm.
I could be feeling grateful, that day and then feel angry and then go into a meditation and feel grateful. Typically, it's like initiated to start meditating on those feelings by people thinking of a future event because we tend to idolize the future.
Hmm.
Um, and so sometimes it's easier to access those emotions by picturing something that we don't have because we're humans and we're like always chasing. But yeah, it could be an emotion that you currently have. I mean, I wouldn't
Okay.
meditate on anger. I'm not trying to get more
Okay.
angry, but
Yeah, I was going to ask, what should be those emotions that we're trying to meditate on? Gratefulness, joy, happiness, stuff
peace.
like that.
Yeah, peace,
Peace.
contentment. Yeah.
I know when people speak about longevity, they often only isolate the physical, training, nutrition, stuff like that. But I mean, we know relationships, friendships, things like that play heavily into longevity as well.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Like, how should those be prioritized? Are those as important, more important?
Yeah. I mean, I think also we live in a day where, I mean, I work remotely from home. Like, so many people are just isolated, like you're alone so much of the day. So, really prioritizing those social relationships. We've also had like a change in the architecture of society where we don't really know our neighbors as much anymore for most people.
Hmm.
And the family unit has reduced to the nuclear unit. And we just have like a siphoning off of connections instead of a village where everyone is connected and you just have more relationships that last longer and longer. People move, even though we have more devices to connect each other, we tend to feel actually less connected overall. So I think it is really, really important. Also, even if there's some studies that are like, oh, if you're lonely, it's like smoking a pack a day. I doubt that. Okay. I like really doubt that. But like it's statistics, there's the truth and then there's lies and then there's statistics. Like things can be manipulated. But the concept of trying to improve your social connections is obviously good. We obviously want to have amazing relationships. What's the point of living longer if you don't have amazing people in your life to share it with? It's, yeah, I don't know the percentage that it's going to contribute to
Mhm.
our longevity, but is it important for living a happy life? 100%.
I when my wife and I moved to Colorado, we did it for her medical school. She's going to CU, and we don't know anybody. We didn't know anybody here, so I started going to a CrossFit gym and I started coaching. 3-4 hours a week, like barely any, just so I could make friends, just so I could like find and know people. And I started to realize like those 3 to 4 hours were like the highlights of my week, because like I got to talk to people, I got to joke around, I got to help people. And I started real and I stopped coaching like a month ago when I started doing this Ironman, because I was like, I don't have time. And what I realized is like I call my dad less, I talk to other people less, I'm less like happy at certain times when I came home. Like those times when I went and I coached and I saw other people and I helped people and I spoke to people, the rest of my day and leading into my next day, like in between those classes, were drastically improved compared to what they are now and what they were before coaching. And so, yes, I may train a little bit less for this Ironman, but I think my day to day and my enjoyment of my day outweighs that. And so I think finding those things that you can use, that you can do to build those relationships, is huge.
Yeah, I had a similar realization. I like tend to optimize to the point that I forget the little things matter too. So like I was going to this yoga class with a friend. And then like we would go, like, I don't know, 3 times a week. And then I was like, well, actually I'm focusing on these things right now in my training and I only have this many hours a week to exercise. So I'm going to just go like once every other week. And then I realized, I was like, wait, now I don't get to see my friend. I don't get to do like the exercise that I love. And I'm like generally less happy. So what is the point? Like maybe I'll be a little bit less optimal in terms of my cardiovascular strength training for, this period of time, and I'll go hang out with my friend. Like you can't be optimal at every aspect for eternity. Like you kind of have to like make choices, and I realized that I was making choices for like my self optimization instead of like my relationship optimization, and shifting towards that has made me happier, shifting towards being more relationship optimizers.
I mean, speaking of that, perfect segue, Brian Johnson. Do you know who he is? Like the king of longevity, wants to live forever, doesn't think he's going to die. He seems like somebody who's going way too far the other way.
Yeah.
How do you like? Do you think he's doing it the right way? How do you feel about what's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, he's in a bit of turmoil right now. Not
Is
just for
he?
like the girlfriend stuff, but also some of
Oh yeah,
I don't care about that. Like, okay,
yeah,
who cares?
yeah.
But some of his data, I think he was representing in a way that was misleading, which I do care about, because I don't look at Brian Johnson like, oh, we should live this way. I'm like, he's the alien. Let's see what
Mhm.
happens if you are the bubble boy and you do all the things. Like, can you actually like make all these changes? And then hopefully
Mhm.
he can say in his N of one experiments, like, what was the best for him? Should we all live that way? I hope not, because life would be really boring.
Yeah,
But yeah, I don't look at him like, oh, you're doing too much. It's like that's his shtick. That's who he is. He's the bubble boy.
yeah.
Like he's gonna do all the things, and hopefully he'll tell us which is the most important.
Mhm. My wife and I were talking about that the other day, because she was like, "Well, his relationships, like he doesn't do anything fun." I was like, "No, like this is his life. Like he loves this, at least based off of what he presents and what I see. I think he would be less happy if he were to go and try to do these other things, just based off of what he seems to be. He seems to love what he's doing right now."
Yeah. Yeah.
And hopefully it works out. Like it would be super cool to watch. But then you have other people like, do you know who Dr. Mike Israetel is? He's
No.
uh he's a PhD as well. Super into the bodybuilding space, super science based. But like he's super open. Like he takes anabolic steroids. Like he's a hardcore like bodybuilder, and he talks about how like he's super just like calories in, calories out, macros, it doesn't really matter. Process like chemicals versus not, it doesn't really matter. He's like, we're gonna be right there with like CRISPR and like gene editing. It's like all like if you can survive for like 10 more years. So the
Yeah.
opposite side of what we were talking about. How do you feel about that?
Okay, so I've actually done a lot of work with CRISPR in the lab.
Mhm.
This was back when I was like deep in like wet lab work. Anyone that's actually worked with CRISPR is not like, yeah, that's what's gonna save us, because there's a
Mhm.
lot of off-target effects. It's mostly people that have never touched a pipette or knows what the virus looks like or knows how it's coded, that think it's gonna save us. Even if you recognize that we're all polygenic in terms of our differentiation of how we age and how we get disease and all these things, like even if it was one gene, I would doubt that you could have like a ton of CRISPR interventions that was going to fix it. So I am a believer of like combining ancient wisdom and modern science. Like I love when I see a study that confirms things that we've already known, because to me that also
Mhm.
confirms that, okay, the way we're doing studies is good, because that's also like on the table of like not being perfect.
Mhm.
So, yeah, this combination of wisdom from generations and generations and new data is, I think, the way to go. We don't know everything right now. This idea that, yeah, I
Yeah.
can make this molecule and it's going to be just as good as the one that's in food. No, what's the chirality? Like, is it combined? Does the absorption change with other nutrients that are around it? There's so many variables. Biology is incredibly humbling. To say that we know everything and everything's going to be fine is just wrong.
What are some of your favorite ancient wisdom that's backed up by modern data?
So, I mean, sauna is a good one.
Yeah.
um, Another one that I've come to be more interested in is acupuncture.
Okay.
So there's a lot more clinical trials now with acupuncture. Look, it's not going to solve everything, but there's a lot of evidence that it can help with pain, it can help with migraines. And now there's these sort of mechanistic studies showing there's this like interstitial fluid within the lymph nodes that it can sort of activate by migrating inflammatory and like histamine molecules that can cause pain towards other areas of the body where you can flush it out, which I just thought was fascinating, because when I first heard of acupuncture, I was like, okay, like
Yeah.
next. um,
Yeah.
but then you learn more about it. You're like, oh, there's something here.
I've never had acupuncture, but I've done a ton of dry needling, like back in, and bang for the buck. Like if I go in and like have a sticking shoulder or whatever is hurting me, dry needling, 30 minutes in, 30 minutes at game changer. Like compared to anything else that I do for recovery back when I was training hardcore, that was it. Just putting the little needles in and then having it hooked up to the electrodes loosened me. Like I felt so much better
Yeah.
after. So I would be interested in trying actual acupuncture for the targeted sites. I don't know what they call them, like where they put them, the maps.
I mean, they put them all over. It like
Yeah.
depends. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that'd be fun to try. Um, I know in the current, like we seem to have, if the further back we go, things get demonized and then they get vindicated and then get demonized and they get vindicated. And I think like one of the things that we're seeing right now is like salt. Salt is coming back as something that people actually need. How do you feel about salt, and who should, like, is that something people should be avoiding, taking, tracking?
Yeah, so there's multiple levels to the like salt dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, One is what kind of salt. So getting salt that is like microplastic tested is great.
Mm-hmm.
You actually kind of want to avoid sea salt. It tends to have like more microplastics in it. Um, and but you don't want like table salt. So getting like salt from, I think it's like Celtic, I want to say Celtic Sea, but that's wrong. It's something else. I'll think of it. But the big things with salt is if you are having no salt in your diet, period, which is very rare, okay? Most people had salt to their food, then it is going to be harder for you to absorb water. You're also going to have
Mm-hmm.
deterioration in brain function, because salt is a key, it's the ion that allows your neurons to fire. So without salt, you're totally screwed. Um, If you have too much salt, you can get hypertension, you will get bloating immediately. So you want to just have a normal amount of salt. Don't, go to
Yeah.
KFC, but like you can put salt on your chicken at home.
Okay. Um, I know some people like, uh, what's his name? Like Peter Attia. Who's the other one? Like Gary Brecka.
Okay.
All those people. They talk about like salting their water like right when they wake up. Throwing. How do you feel about that? Like
Yeah,
electrolytes.
I mean, so the obsession with electrolytes, look, if I, had alcohol, I will have electrolytes the next morning.
Hmm.
If I had an extreme workout, I will have electrolytes after. In general, if you drink water at a consistent pace, you don't need electrolytes. Your body will be able to absorb the water. What electrolytes allow you to do is absorb more water in a shorter period of time of drinking. So if you chug a bottle versus sipping it over an hour, you're going to absorb more water if you sip it over an hour than if you chug it. If you have electrolytes in that water, that therapeutic distance is going to be smaller. So you can drink faster and retain more water. If you love electrolytes, pop off. But like, I think it's like an obsession that we just should not be obsessed with.
Okay. So like everybody who has the LMNT code and the link and LMNTs everywhere, and you're just like, no.
I mean, some people love it. They
Situational.
drink it
Yeah.
and they feel like, and those people often like weren't drinking water. So it's like,
Mm.
okay, great, you're drinking water now.
Hmm.
But this idea that you need it, that it's essential, get a fish oil, get some creatine.
Yeah. Do, is there drink water to satiation, satisfaction? Like how much water do you think people should be drinking?
So actually, most of the time, if you're thirsty, it's too late. So you should just be drinking water throughout the day. Like I have water by my desk. I'm
Hmm.
pretty much constantly drinking water. Am I peeing constantly? Yes. But it's the price that I'll pay.
Me too. Yeah, I mean, right when I wake up, like the first thing I do is like when I roll out of bed, it's 24 ounces of water. I do it depends. I have been now that I'm doing Ironman training, usually I'm like going straight into a longer session. So I will throw some salt in there. But the days, like I've been doing this for a while now, but on the off chance that I don't drink my water, like I just feel groggy, like when I wake up or like later in the day. So like front loading again, getting some water in first thing really wakes me up. Um, I've never been one to drink caffeine. Like
Oh,
I've
really?
never
Okay.
felt I've never felt the effects. Like I don't like I don't feel alertness. I don't get woken up. Nothing. I don't feel anything from caffeine. And none of my siblings do. It's really weird. And
Interesting.
we may have something. Yeah, it's really like none of us. Like we can. And we don't have any. We don't take pre-workouts. We don't have any tolerance to any of that. So we just don't feel it. Um, so like water is like I like it wakes me up. But speaking of that, I know people have a tendency to wake up and drink caffeine. How do you feel people should wait that 60 to 90 minutes so they can continue to wake up, and or how do you feel about that?
Yeah. So definitely, and it's nice for two reasons. The first that you'll feel immediately is you will feel, I mean, you don't feel caffeine, but the average person, you'll feel your caffeine more. And it won't just be
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm awake now. You'll be like, I'm awake and I feel energetic. It's nice to actually feel it more. And two, it allows your body to wake up on its own instead of relying on this stimulant, which you don't want. You want to be able to just wake up and be a normal human without caffeine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Matthew Walker talks about it in his book, Why We Sleep, like the way the adenosine like
Mm.
processes out and how like the caffeine attaches to the adenosine receptor. And so like the adenosine continues to process out 60 to 90 minutes. So if you're having caffeine, you're stopping your body from processing that natural, you're still sleepy. And so then when that wears off, you're going to crash that much harder because you have that much
Yeah.
extra adenosine already built up.
You have that
Um,
buildup. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, which is very interesting. Um, you brought up microplastics in the sea salt and in general. Is that something you think people need to be worried about?
Yeah. Don't go crazy, but I think if you, one, don't have plastic Tupperware, don't heat plastic, that's honestly going to set you apart from most people. Drinking water out of, glass bottles. I drink out of metal. Some people say metal has like a film on it that can have microplastics, but it's pretty minimal compared to drinking out of a plastic water bottle. And then having that water be filtered is going to put you miles above most people. The worst kind of plastic is that black plastic. Avoid at all costs. And if you're cooking from home, generally, you're going to be able to avoid most. It's like if you go out and get a latte or you go out and you get food and it's in a plastic container. So trying to minimize that as much as possible will set you miles ahead of most people.
So that's the 20% that gets you the 80%. What about, maybe it's just what I'm looking at, but I keep getting these ads on like my Instagram and my Facebook for like 100% cotton, organic cotton, like underwear, all that stuff. Do you think that should be prioritized as well? Or how are you feeling about synthetic fibers versus?
Yeah, so I think especially for women, you want your underwear to be cotton. That's the only thing I've changed my wardrobe. Should I change my workout clothes? Yes, but I like a stretchy fabric. If someone can make a stretchy fabric that is not, polyester, then I will wear that. But until it happens, I'll change. I'll change the 20% to get the 80% benefit, and that's underwear.
Yeah, there's no way I'm riding this bike for 3 hours in cotton. I will die. I will shave. It will be absolutely miserable. Yeah. And so okay, that makes me feel better. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm going to do. Cause my house, we're, no plastics, all glass, all metal. We do have like a reverse osmosis water filtration system, which we love. It's just a countertop one because we're in an apartment. I think we use blue
ocean or
it's a 4-stage reverse osmosis, like, and it goes into like a glass carafe. We love it. We've had it for like a year now, and whenever we go anywhere else, we're like, we're water snobs now. Yeah, because it does taste that much better. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I have a tradition on this podcast where whenever we're wrapping up, I like to ask my guests who would be the person that they would be most interested in speaking to or listening to on a podcast. And then assuming they're live and well, I will of course do my best to get them on and credit you with them being here. Who would that person be for you?
Oh, well, I'm good friends with Kayla Barnes, and she's like amazing. So I would recommend her. But let's see. There's some really incredible like scientists that aren't necessarily public that you might want to interview. Yeah. So, but I don't know if that's like up your alley. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the point of this podcast is me just being selfish and talking to people about things that I'm interested in. So, I mean, I love it. I love the fitness and the health and the longevity and the biohacking area. I think it's super interesting. I think a lot of it can go maybe a little bit too far, as we discussed, or the wrong direction. But I mean, it's definitely something that I'm interested in. So, yeah. You'll have to send me those.
Yeah, send them to you. So I'll just reach out and be like, hey, like, would you be open?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. Where can people find you? Where can they get more?
Yeah, so I'm on TikTok and Instagram at Dr. K Linker, just my first and last name. And yeah, I talk a lot about like female longevity, cognitive longevity. So yeah, go check it out.
Awesome. Well, I will have everything linked in the show notes as well, so they can just click and find you. Again, thank you so much. This was so fun.
Thank you. This was great.
Thank you for listening to the Chase Merrill podcast.